It was Halloween night, and we had planned a party in the woods because it sounded cool and different and kind of spooky in a fun way. Someone's cousin knew this open clearing deep in the forest where no one ever went, and it felt perfect for a night like that. We loaded up cars with lights and snacks and speakers and fake cobwebs and skeletons and carved pumpkins that we put on tree stumps. It looked awesome and kind of creepy too once it got dark. Everyone came dressed up in cheap costumes and glowing paint, and we lit a big fire in the middle to keep warm. It was cold enough to see your breath, but the fire made it okay. At first, it was just a regular party. People were dancing, some were drinking, some were just standing around with their phones or talking to people they barely knew. It was loud and full of laughter and energy, and it felt like this wild thing we'd always remember. It felt free, out there with no lights and no houses and no parents and no teachers. Just us. I remember standing near the edge of the group just watching it all. The way people's faces looked in the firelight. The way shadows moved when someone danced too close to the flames. You could hear the wind through the trees, and it sounded like it was alive or whispering, or maybe just reminding us how far we were from everything. For a moment it felt a little strange, but I brushed it off. Just Halloween vibes, I guess. Around midnight someone noticed something in the trees. I didn't see it at first. Just heard someone say, "Hey, who's that?" We all turned to look. There were shapes just past the firelight. Not moving, just standing. Dark figures between the trees where the light didn't quite reach. Someone laughed and said probably more people joining the party or just messing with us. A few people shouted into the woods, but the figures didn't answer. They didn't wave. They didn't come closer. They didn't move at all. That's when it started to feel wrong. One of the guys picked up a flashlight and aimed it toward them, but the light flickered and died after just a second, like the batteries were drained, even though we had checked everything before leaving the cars. Someone else tried to turn on their phone flashlight, but their phone wouldn't even unlock. They held the button. Nothing. We all started checking our phones. No signal. No battery. No light. It was like something had drained everything electronic in a second, and it happened to everyone. The Bluetooth speaker started acting up right after. It crackled with static. Then the music stopped. We tried to reconnect it, but it wouldn't pair with anything. And then we heard it. A voice. Not someone at the party. Not anyone we knew. A voice that came through the static. Not loud. Just clear enough to hear. It said, "We like your costumes." That was it. Just that one sentence. But it felt like the air went cold in a different way. Like something had shifted. No one screamed. No one moved. We just stood still and listened. And then the speaker cut off completely. Dead silent except the wind and the fire popping and crackling. I looked back toward the woods. The figures were gone, not like they ran. Just gone. Not even the sound of footsteps or leaves crunching or branches breaking. It was like they had never been there at all. We all kind of looked at each other, trying to decide what to do next. A few people laughed nervously, tried to play it off like a prank. Like maybe someone had done it with a voice recording or a remote speaker. But we all knew it wasn't a joke. Because none of the gear worked. Because that voice didn't sound like a joke. It didn't sound like anything human. One girl swore she saw a face watching us from the trees. Just a face. Pale and still and almost glowing. But no one else saw it, and we were all too freaked out to argue or investigate. So we did what felt natural. We packed up, slowly and together. No one wanted to be the last person there. Everyone kept glancing over their shoulder. We didn't talk much. Just grabbed what we could carry and made our way back toward the cars as a group. Even the people who came separately waited to walk together. No one wanted to be alone in the woods anymore. When we got back to the cars, the phones started working again. Batteries at full charge. Lights came on. Music played. Everything was fine. Too fine. Like nothing had happened at all. But no one played any more music on the way home. No one talked much either. Just tired excuses and mumbled goodbyes. Over the next few days we joked about it here and there. Made memes about the speaker ghost or the forest people. But even the jokes felt half-hearted. None of us really wanted to talk about the voice or the fact that nothing worked or how the woods seemed to watch us. And that weird face the girl said she saw. We never figured out who or what was out there. We never found out where the voice came from, and no one ever really suggested going back. Not even the bold ones. Not even the ones who always pushed the limits. Now every Halloween someone brings it up. Not in a serious way, more like remember that night we partied in the woods. And someone always says, yeah, I remember. That was creepy. But then we move on, because it's easier not to think about what really happened or what might have been watching us from the dark. Easier to pretend it was just a glitch or a prank or Halloween messing with our heads. But deep down I think we all know, something was out there. It watched us, it heard us, and it wanted us to know it was there. It was the day before Halloween and I still didn't have a costume. I didn't want to spend money on something new, so I decided to stop by this old thrift shop downtown where they kept the seasonal stuff in a dusty back corner. I was just browsing when I saw it hanging there. A full Scarecrow outfit, old flannel shirt, torn jeans, straw sewn into the sleeves and cuffs, a burlap sack mask with black button eyes and a crooked stitched smile. It looked perfect, creepy but simple. The kind of thing that made people do a double take. It smelled kind of like dirt and mold and maybe an attic, but it fit well and felt oddly comfortable, so I bought it and walked out of the store without really thinking twice about it. The next evening was the block party. Every year the neighborhood would go all out with decorations and music and candy and fake cobwebs hanging from trees. Everyone dressed up, everyone mingled and joked and acted like we were all in some little Halloween movie. I put on the Scarecrow costume and headed out just after dark. At first it felt like any other party. People were dancing, kids were running around with glow sticks, music was playing from a speaker near the sidewalk. But then I started to notice something. People were staring at me longer than they should. Not everyone, just a few. Their smiles would falter a little when they saw me, like they were trying to figure something out, or like they recognized me but couldn't place from where. One woman walked past with her daughter and she actually pulled her kid a little closer and looked at me like I'd done something wrong. That was strange. I just smiled under the mask and kept walking. Later a guy bumped into me and muttered something that sounded like an apology, but he didn't look me in the eye. He just kept walking faster. I started to feel a little uncomfortable. Maybe the costume was more realistic than I thought. Maybe it looked too creepy or too close to some local story I didn't know. I wasn't from the area originally, so I figured maybe there was some local legend or haunted hayride or something that my outfit reminded them of. But then I was standing by the drinks table just sipping from a can when this older woman walked up and stood beside me. She was holding a paper plate with cookies on it. She looked at me for a moment, not with fear, just with concern. Then she leaned in a little and said softly, "You shouldn't wear that." I laughed and asked her why. She didn't laugh. She just looked me dead in the eye and said, "Because he always comes back for it." That's all she said. Then she walked away into the crowd like nothing happened. Now I was seriously weirded out. I left the party early and walked home in the dark with the mask off, but the rest of the costume still on. The streets were quiet and every now and then I thought I heard footsteps behind me, but when I turned around no one was there. I made it home and got inside and locked the door and turned on all the lights. I took off the costume and dropped it on the chair in the corner of my room. I figured I'd deal with returning it to the store tomorrow or maybe just toss it out. Something about the night just felt off. I couldn't explain it. I went to bed a little after midnight. I remember tossing and turning. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I finally drifted off, but I woke up again around 3 in the morning. The room was dark, but I could feel something was wrong. That kind of feeling you get when someone is watching you. I sat up and looked over at the chair. The costume was gone. The chair was empty. I got out of bed slowly and checked the floor around it, thinking maybe it had fallen. Nothing. I opened the closet. Nothing. I stood there frozen for a few seconds, then turned on all the lights in the room, and that's when I saw it. On the mirror, just above the sink, written in thick muddy letters. One word: return. I just stood there, staring at it. My chest felt tight and my hands were shaking. I hadn't heard anything. No door creak. No footsteps. Nothing. Just silence. And now this. The costume was gone. And something or someone had written on the mirror while I slept. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat on the floor in the hallway with every light in the apartment on. As soon as the sun came up, I got dressed and went back to the thrift shop. I walked in and asked the guy at the counter about the Scarecrow costume. He looked at me confused and asked what costume. I explained where I found it. He said they hadn't put out anything like that this year. He asked for a description, so I told him. His face changed a little. He looked older somehow in that moment. He said we had one like that come through last year. A donation from a rural estate sale, but it was never supposed to be sold. It went missing a few days after they got it in. I asked him why it wasn't supposed to be sold. He just looked at me and said some things carry stories with them, and some stories don't like being forgotten. Then he said, if you still have it, bring it back and we'll take care of it. I told him it was gone. He nodded like he already knew. I left the store without saying another word. That night I locked every window, every door, turned on every light. I even left the TV on for background noise. I tried to sleep, but I kept checking the mirror. I kept thinking about that stitched smile and those black button eyes. I still don't know what it meant by return. The costume hasn't come back, but sometimes I think I hear the soft sound of straw brushing the floor. Sometimes the lights flicker just once, just enough to notice, and I never found out who wore that costume before me. All I know is it fit too well, like it had been waiting for me. When I was really little, my parents used to let me stay up late on weekends, and I loved those nights more than anything. It made me feel grown up. I would lie on the couch with the TV on and just enjoy being the only one awake in the house. The quiet made everything feel kind of magical. I would fight sleep and stay up as long as I could. I felt like something special might happen if I stayed up late enough. Most nights nothing ever did, but this one night was different. It was the kind of night you never forget. I was lying on the couch. The TV was still on. I was just about to fall asleep when I heard something outside. It was a quiet creaking sound. At first I thought it was maybe the wind or something brushing against the house. But then I heard it again. It was slow, rhythmic, the sound of our porch swing moving back and forth. That sound was unmistakable. It wasn't the wind. It was the sound of someone sitting on it and swinging. My heart started pounding. I got up slowly and went over to the bay window. I didn't want to look, but I needed to. I pulled back the curtain just a little and looked out. I froze. There was a woman sitting on our porch swing. She was wearing a nightgown. The nightgown was soaked in blood. She had blood all over her arms. In one hand she was holding a large kitchen knife. She wasn't moving much, just gently rocking back and forth on the swing. She didn't seem in a hurry. She looked calm, almost like she belonged there. I ran to my parents' bedroom as fast as I could. I was screaming. I couldn't form words. I was too scared. My mom sat up right away. My dad was annoyed. He thought I was having a nightmare. I kept trying to explain. I was crying and shaking. I told them there was a woman with a knife outside. My dad told me I was dreaming. He said I needed to calm down and go back to bed, but I wouldn't stop. I was hysterical. He finally got out of bed. He grabbed my arm. He said he would prove there was no one there. He started dragging me toward the front door. I was begging him to stop. I was pulling back. He didn't believe me. He just wanted to show me the porch was empty. He unlocked the front door and swung it open. He said, "See, there's nothing, bae." But he didn't finish. She was still there. She was still sitting on the swing. She turned her head slowly and looked at us. And she stood up. She was holding the knife in her hand. Her face was pale and blank. I looked up at my dad. I had never seen that look on his face before. Total shock. Total fear. He slammed the door shut. He locked it. He yelled at my mom to call the police. Then he ran to the closet and grabbed his shotgun. He came back to the front door and cracked it open just enough to stick the barrel through. He aimed it at her. He told her to stop. He asked what she was doing. She just stood there, still. She looked at him and said, "Somebody killed my husband, but it wasn't me." Her voice was quiet, steady, like she really believed what she was saying. My dad told her the police were coming. She looked around slowly, then she turned and walked away. She still had the knife in her hand. The police arrived about 15 minutes later. My dad gave a description. They searched the area. They found her trying to break into a neighbor's house. They arrested her. I never found out who she was. My parents didn't talk much about it after. I think it scared them more than they ever admitted. I never slept in the living room again. I didn't even like walking past that window after dark. Every time I did, I could see her in my mind, sitting there, rocking slowly. holding the knife, looking at me. People don't believe me when I tell this story. I get it. It sounds too crazy to be true, like something out of a horror movie. But it happened. I was there. My dad was there. We saw her. We both saw her. I still think about it sometimes. Late at night, when everything is quiet, when I hear something outside, when the house creaks, when the wind moves the trees. Sometimes the scariest stories aren't the ones in books. Sometimes they aren't made up. Sometimes they are real. Sometimes they sit right outside your front door.
If you liked the video, don't forget to like and share. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos like this.